Hello, everyone. Welcome to Animator's Breakfast, which is a podcast where we talk about inspiration when it comes to animation. And I'm back with the two amazing boys. I've got Brent and I've got Max. Say hello there, boyos.
Hello there, boyos.
Well, hello there, Cole. Boys.
Last time we talked a bit about Garfield, which is a very factual and interesting discussion. And we promised a little teaser for all the fans that we come back and talk about another show that Brent had picked. So Brent, give us a little flavor of what you've got there.
Well, I think in the same vein as Garfield, I want to talk about something that's also equally underappreciated, but very important to visual culture and meme culture and Americana culture.
Oh, wow.
And so the show I want to talk about is King of the Hill. All right, there you go.
Give us your best Hank Hill.
So are you Chinese or Japanese?
I'm gonna come over there and whoop you, I'll tell you what.
There better be a naked cheerleader under your bed.
Why do people do drugs when you can cut grass? Interestingly enough, like last week's episode, this property is also a huge part of current day meme culture.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of King of the Hill memes, and there's a lot of artistic license taken with King of the Hill. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the YouTube poop genre.
No?
YouTube poop is kind of very like new wave video editing.
Okay.
People take clips of shows and just mash them together and do all kinds of weird stuff to create these very audio landscapes that are kind of a disaster, and it gives completely new context to the show. And it's just like sometimes they'll stay on a line and just repeat it for a lot of times and then play it backwards and then forwards really quickly. It's very like Tim and Eric style editing. But I think King of the Hill makes the best YouTube. It's always worth a laugh.
And why is it that this is a stupid question, but why do these exist? why? What's the whole purpose? Is it just to explore the show in a way, or just to have the crack?
Well, I think YouTube poops they're almost a weapon, but they're also a form of entertainment. They're exploration of video editing.
Okay,
like if you just want to mess around and create weird stuff, and like we're all very familiar with like King of the Hill, so that's a great one to go with. And it's also unexpected because King of the Hill takes itself like kind of seriously. So seeing it in that context is really different. But YouTube poops are also a weapon in that in like gamer like Discord like ventrilo culture, like you might raid someone's like Discord channel and just like play that as loud as possible, and everyone would just be like, what the heck?
That's incredible, actually.
Oh yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
It's also because the show is so phenomenal, and that's what I know. Brent grew up watching King of the Hill, but I grew up watching The Simpsons, and when King of the Hill came on, I was like, who is this stupid guy interrupting my hilarious yellow family? And it wasn't until I was an adult and I watched King of the Hill that I was able to appreciate that it's actually deserved to be up there with The Simpsons. It is one of the greatest cartoons of that era, and there's like 8 seasons of it to prove it.
It ran for a long time, didn't it?
King of the Hill ran from January 12th, 1997 to September 20th, 2009. And after that, it went into syndication. So they were able to screen it on other networks, and I think it found new success on Adult Swim because it would air almost 2 episodes a day on Adult Swim.
Wow.
And I think that's when it was
Yeah.
really appreciated. It was really appreciated at the time by certain people, but I think King of the Hill at the time was always seen as kind of like, oh, it's this other show that's not as good as The Simpsons that is on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
The people who worked on it at the time, they kind of felt like they were in the shadow of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And when it came to exploring humanity, Mike Judge already has this enormous list of fantastic movies that do just that and deserve like cult status that they actually have, like Office Space.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Beavis and Butthead is incredible. Idiocracy is, I mean,
That's one of the best films.
the only like sci-fi comedy movie that actually worked on also a good sci-fi level. It's incredibly good sci-fi. And Silicon Valley, like he's an incredible writer, and why wouldn't his 8-season TV show, you know, be a phenomenal hit that it was?
It's a very unobtrusive animated sitcom. And I think that really plays in its favor, what you were saying, Max and Brent. Like, while there was other shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy and South Park that were kind of all screaming for attention,
King of the Hill was
King of the Hill was just kind of there doing its own thing.
Every character in King of the Hill is incredibly limited and restricted in what they're able to express. They're physically and emotionally conservative, and that's why they're so funny to watch, because a lot of the times the struggle of an episode is usually just a character like attempting to admit their feelings, and they're not able to do that. Sometimes that show will just end after the character just finally says like, "Oh, I'm grateful for you," like, and then that's the ending.
Wow.
One of the episodes, Hank gets constipated, and he ends by finally taking a bowel movement, and they play like "Ode to Joy," and they play it straight. Like, he thought he was gonna die if he doesn't take a poop.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. It's connected to this idea of like expressing love for his wife. So he was kind of bottling up his emotion and his feelings for Peggy, and when he finally was able to admit that he loved his wife, he was then able to also poop.
Feelings and feces.
They made a link there, and I really like it. It's a great episode.
I think that's smart writing. And obviously Mike Judge did things like Beavis and Butthead as well, so he's not unknown for animated shows. What was the one you were talking about ages ago, Max? The newer one that he was doing?
Mike Judge presents Tales from the Tour Bus.
That's it. Yeah. How's that?
Yes, that's an incredible series. It's very, very, very good. I've watched all of it. The first season is them interviewing people about the history of country music who were around during the time. And the second season is them interviewing people from the era of funk in the 70s.
Wow.
Which is an incredible season.
And it's actual interviews.
Actual interviews, and then they animate the stories. But
yeah.
It's also got Mike Judge as a narrator, like kind of like a Stephen King type narrator, and he's bringing out different records. It's very interesting and very beautiful. He really somehow he straddles the line of like being beautiful and humanistic and positive, and also just very, very funny. The writing doesn't actually have jokes in it, to be honest. It's just like something, the character will say something that's so in character for them.
Yeah.
I think that goes with a lot of Mike Judge writing. Like King of the Hill, I mean, that's most of the jokes. Like, characters just say like something really in character.
It might not be that funny, but of course Bobby would say that.
Yeah, one of the earliest Bobby lines, he says, he tastes a dog collar, and he's like, "This tastes just like a Bible cover," which says so much about his character, because like he goes to Bible school and he's so bored there that he tastes Bibles.
I can't remember actually the first time I saw King of the Hill, and I remember really enjoying it. I think it was an episode where Dale, I think Peggy and Hank are going to marriage counseling. Isn't that an episode?
Yeah, I think that's one.
And Dale was going to marriage counseling, and one of the tricks of the counselor is to like give them a map to where they find treasure.
Yeah.
And Dale like immediately eats his map when someone asks what it is, because he thinks it's actual treasure, so he can't read it then, and then hides outside the office waiting for someone else to come out with another map and steals it. And I thought, this is just amazing. Undersold, played so straight.
You know what I'm gonna do for you? I'm going to give you a treasure map to your very own treasure inside your house. It. And the only reason why Hank agreed to go to that counselor is because Dale told them that he would side with the husband, and then he didn't.
It's really smart writing.
Dale is an incredible character because he's basically raising another man's child, and the man is still actively fucking his wife. And he's got conspiracy theories about everything on Earth, except the one that's right in front of his nose.
God, that's a really good point.
Dale represents a very far side of conservatism that existed then. King of the Hill, I think, takes place in a time when politics was different in America.
Okay.
And so Dale represented the extreme right, the extreme like conspiracy theory, right-wing nut job guy. So he makes the main cast feel a lot more central, and I love that he's able to offset with all these ridiculous ideas, but you love him unconditionally because he's so weird.
Yeah,
it totally humanized that political ideology.
Yeah, I completely agree. But to us, it was just a crazy character.
Yeah, he just seems crazy, but to Americans, that's a very real person and a very real identity.
Wow.
I think that's what's kind of like crazy to me now is like stuff that seems so obvious to me, like, oh, political stuff, you have to believe this, otherwise you're just a terrible person. Well, that's just really like, well, that's what people think in America.
Yeah.
I feel like the show was initially making fun of those type of people, but then those people actually loved those characters, and everyone could just connect and like understand each other.
Yeah, I think that people who are living in the real King of the Hill love those characters because they see themselves in it, and everyone else watches it and they do see a lot of themselves, but they see like people they might know.
Yeah.
And you don't hate them because they actually have like honest like morals, and they're nice people, and they view everything. They have like a slightly different spin on like, I think what we would describe them as being conservative, because their political views are very like, well, I'm a true American and that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And the things that they were against were not specifically like liberals. They were against, the fight in King of the Hill was often against globalization, increasing technology, things that felt dumb and automated and stupid and coming from corporations. And this was a time during the Clinton era when all this stuff was happening.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of times Hank is fighting a unstoppable technological machine like the Beast that has his identity and can send him junk mail.
Yeah.
Or he'll fight stupid, like dumb corporate lawyers from like the UCLA or something like that just want to believe in something ridiculous.
In regards to people connecting to it politically, I don't think it's necessarily a very political show on its face, but it's more just about the politics of the characters. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's actually not a very political show. The characters believe things that we all believe. Like Hank stands up for things that he believes in and fights for them, and you always agree with him because they're values that we all hold. But you just know that his character is to vote a certain way.
Sometimes I find as well, like specifically when it comes to his conversations with Bobby and stuff, he's very set in his ways, and most of the conflict is just like this next generation are just making a mess of things, and they need to be told what strong values are and what a boy's role is and what a girl's role is.
Yeah, the conflict is always between character types because Bobby's the antithesis of Hank. He's all expressive and energy and likes new things.
And terrible at sports.
Terrible. It's like the son that Hank really, really doesn't want. He likes prop comedy and drama and theater. And he's just a weirdo.
He is a weirdo, but loves who he is. He's very body positive.
Yes, Hank fought his entire life to not be a weirdo. He fought to be a football player.
Yes.
And he played like JV or something. All the characters in the show offset Hank in a really great way and make him fight things that they make him confront things that he's not comfortable with.
Yes.
Bobby, the weirdness. Luann is a character to mess with Hank's understanding of sexuality.
Okay.
In the initial pitch to Fox that was just done in a pencil test, they needed to just describe the characters, so they made a quick animation of Hank pitching the show, and it's very much like this is your dad and your dad has a show, except it's funny. And he talks right to the camera and he talks right to the CEO of Fox, and he's like, well, this is going to be a good show because of course I got my buddies Bill Boomhauer and Luann, and with all the things that she's gonna wear, that's gonna be good for the ratings, I suppose. And he's visibly uncomfortable describing anything about Luann.
Yeah, he really struggles with languages around or terminology. Like you were saying, he couldn't even admit that he loved his wife.
And I remember his huge sexual shame is his urethra is very narrow.
I have a narrow urethra. Yeah.
That's like the big secret that like Peggy is like hiding, along with him.
Isn't there an episode as well where Bobby is going to take sex ed in school, but they refuse to let him?
Yes, and Peggy has to teach it.
Yeah.
And Peggy is also equally repressed. She is definitely more progressive than Hank, but she can't say the word penis.
Oh yeah, that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, so she convinces herself to say it in the mirror by saying happiness.
I also think further along in the seasons, they started to do very bizarre plots, but play it all straight. And something about it being so grounded for so long and this weird stuff happening made it all the better. Like, I remember two instances that I thought were way overboard. One was Peggy jumps out of a plane and breaks every bone in her body, which was like, what the hell
Yeah.
show
That
is
was a
this?
two-parter.
Like,
Yeah.
I actually remember that.
yeah, it was scary. Like she had to heal for a whole like a couple episodes after too. And another one that was bizarre was this bizarre trip sequence with whack-a-mole game, and
Yes.
it's like a very bizarre David Lynch fever dream.
The Y2K episode.
Yeah, so they were able to get very creative with these very simple people.
Yeah, the show skirts right on the edge of you having to ask yourself, did this need to be animated?
Yes.
Because it's so straightforward. But in every episode, they always do something really specific.
Yeah.
Where you have to stand back and say, that could only happen in animation. This is it. And those choices that it makes are really good. Like the Twister episode when Hank is like, his boxers get pulled off when they're playing whack-a-mole. Those surreal sequences in hell where Hank is, that's a clean burn in hell, I tell you what. That's why it works so well in animation. Like this show would be really forgettable if it was live action.
That's a really good point.
I totally agree. Yeah. I think Hank's head is a work of art. Like they exaggerated it just enough. Same with his butt. Like his the way that he's got this really flat butt, but also this muffin top. It's so subtle, and you know that guy exactly.
I know so many
Yeah,
of those. The muffin top is great.
It's based on Mike Judge's drawing of him, and Mike Judge kind of like talked about what he draws, and he just said, oh, if I don't have anything to do, I think the funniest thing is like middle-aged white guys. And so I would just draw these characters over and over again before the show existed. And it's so amusing. No one but Mike Judge would think to do that because no one would want to celebrate that. And he chose to celebrate it with these characters, and they're so realistic. They're not pretty. They're not Ubermensch. They're not designed. They're undesigned by a person who's not particularly concerned with animation design, and that's what makes it so great.
That's such a good point. Middle-aged white guys are so funny.
They are funny. My dad is hilarious, but you couldn't stick a camera on my dad and have it be a show, but that's what they did.
And they did it for a long time, for 10 years.
Yeah. Well, it's all about Greg Daniels, because Greg Daniels was able to take the idea of like, I think middle-aged white guys are funny, and say, okay, we're going to have the main guy, we're going to play him the straight guy, and we're going to offset him against all these characters that make him react and confront all these things that make him feel uncomfortable. So that's, Greg Daniels wrote all the other characters to make them very extreme.
What about, are many of them like very typical Texan characters, or they're just kind of generic American guys?
They are very caricatured of people that you could know. I think Hank is probably is very real. Everyone knows someone like Hank, and Hank is also ourselves, because we like Hank because he's just excited about doing things right. He's excited about mowing the lawn. He's excited about he believes in paying taxes. Yeah. I think Dale is very real. We all know that kind of nutty AM radio loving conspiracy nut. Boomhauer is a lot of people in Texas, your uncle that you can't really understand. Boomhauer is based on just a guy that would call in about Beavis and Butthead and just speak incoherently over on the answering machine, and they listen to him and they're like, we just have to have this guy as a character.
Bill is also extremely relatable and sad.
Yeah.
Peggy is, I think, one of the strongest like female characters, because she is really smart and really, really arrogant and like self obsessed, and that makes her perfect, because you have a lot of respect for Peggy, but at the same time you cannot stand her talking about herself. And she plays the dumbest game. She plays Boggle.
I think Luann is actually a really interesting character as well, because she's kind of tragic in a sense that she's really, like, when they reveal she's incredible about mechanical stuff.
Yes. Yeah, she has it bred into her.
Yes, but like usually in other shows, when a character finds out what they're good at, that kind of defines them then. Whereas this is very much like she never touches it. She never really goes near it. It just happens when it happens.
Luann is kind of like, she can't be stopped by her genes. You know, I think her character trajectory is kind of sad, but I also realize that it's like a joke. Like, she's the first person in her family to like break out of the trailer park.
Yeah.
and go to college, but she doesn't go to college, she goes to beauty school.
Yes.
And then at some point she leaves beauty school and goes to real college. And just at the peak of doing something with her life, she gets pregnant and marries Lucky and gets sucked back into the trailer park like lifestyle.
Wasn't Lucky voiced by Tom Petty, wasn't he?
He's Tom Petty. And he slipped in PP at the Costco.
Yeah, and that's how he got all his money.
Yeah, he got $53,000, which he has like 5,000 left.
Yeah, Luann is such a tragic character in that sense. But I get what you mean. Like, of course, it's a joke.
She is such a hopeless romantic. She's very darling.
And she's not stupid either. There are times because she gets a lot of emotional stuff and gets a lot of relationship stuff that the other characters don't get, because she has had the opportunity to probably do more of that in her life. Than always give people like advice, and she knows when she's being taken advantage of.
I wanted to ask about, let's say, when you were growing up, what age would you've been when it started, Brent?
It came on TV in '97, so I would have been 9.
Wow.
But I don't think
I was 7.
I don't think I really saw it until I was like 10, and I didn't understand it. I saw it was like a weird show that wasn't funny, and then occasionally there was like something that made me laugh like a lot. Yeah. And I had to keep watching it growing up. It just became this thing that was always on. And I started to really appreciate it in middle school. And I did a drawing of my friend, and when I showed her, she was like, "Oh, this looks like King of the Hill. You should work for King of the Hill." And I was kind of like, that's kind of cool. Like, I drew something that looked like a TV show, and it was accidental, but I always thought about that, and I was like, I could draw like the show. I really couldn't, but at the time it seemed to me like I could. Yeah. And then I really fell in love with it again later when I was in college, and I was just watching Adult Swim all the time because it had gotten a little bit older, and I started to really see the political humor and like the subtle jokes that you don't understand, like, because they're not rip-roaringly funny.
You have to have experienced some life to understand every single joke.
I think so.
I watched it recently and I felt the same way. Like, you know, I remember one joke stood out that was, they asked Bobby if he knows anything about sex, and he says, "Well, I'm real worried about being a slut." I wouldn't have gotten that as a 13-year-old.
No. Was that when you first watched it, Max?
I watched it about a year ago. I'm still not done with it, but I was loving it. I was getting into some weird sequences. I remember Hank in hell. That was very weird.
I think what's really interesting is how other people perceive the show and like what they like and don't like about it, because I don't think that most people really understand it, so they have a really broad range of opinions on it. Like, my ex would watch it and she would just be like, the only reason she would ever laugh is because of Boomhauer. She'd be like, "Oh, I have an uncle like that."
Okay. Yeah.
Like, they only think the show is funny on that level. Yeah. My mom doesn't like it. When she watches it, I think she looks at Hank and is just like, "That man is an ass, the way he treats Peggy." Because Hank is always trying to subtly manipulate her at the beginning of every episode, and can't express his feelings at all, and he's like a cinder block. But it's about Hank's like very, very tiny growth as a character and as a husband.
It's almost untrackable, the growth.
It's almost untrackable. But that's why it's great.
It's like the smallest curve known to mankind. It does happen.
But I think a lot of people can't see it. He does come off as a jerk, though, if you've been married to a person like that.
I haven't been, but I'll keep an eye out for it.
I feel like a character that I legitimately grew to hate was Cotton, his dad.
Yeah. Cotton is really, really abrasive in all the sense, and he's almost unforgivable all the time. Yeah. But I think people like him because he's so outrageous and so funny, but that's not really a good reason to like him. Like, he's a bad person.
Fundamentally a bad person.
Yeah.
Isn't he very racist as well?
Yeah, and incredibly sexist. You know, he'll slap women like at a bar, and his confrontation with Peggy is like really extreme. "Hank's wife." And she unapologetically hates him. They hate each other. There is an episode where they bond a little bit because she hates him enough to be able to stand up while she's going through recovery, and that's when their relationship peaks the most.
I really like the theme of, that life goes on all around you. It's just constantly going on. And you can choose to kind of just live your own life in a little bubble with your pals, or you can kind of explore it and get out and about, which is, I think they understand that. And that's what the opening theme is all about. The opening sequence.
Yeah, Hank never left that bubble.
Yeah.
He's living in high school. He's living the dream of never leaving your hometown.
Yeah.
But that's kind of why it's beautiful. It's this isolated system that has achieved perfect homeostasis. But you can't keep the outside world from coming in.
Yes.
And that's what Hank is fighting. All of the automation, all of the technology, all of the new scary things on the news, all the people, all the lawyers coming from LA. And his bubble definitely is about to be popped every episode. It's the outside world is coming in to Arlen. That's
a really amazing point, I think. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that.
I read a lot of King of the Hill threads.
Okay. You could have just taken the credit.
No. I'm stealing these ideas from people who are smarter than me, who wrote smarter things and observation about the show.
What do you think about the placement in Arlen and everything like that? It's not really a real place, is it?
Arlen is a very real place in your mind. It's on the 35, so that's real. The 35 is a real road in Texas. And it exists somewhere where you can drive an hour and get to the German town that sells garden gnomes.
Okay.
And if you drive the other direction, you can get to Dallas. It's on the interstate.
Okay.
That's all you need to know. And there are so many places in Texas that are just like that. Just a tiny suburb that's maybe 2 hours away from the nearest city.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's there is that there's a tiny town with an exit. It's based a little bit on Tyler, Texas.
Okay.
Which I've been to, and it's, Arlen is so much more interesting than any of those real towns.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway. It's like Arlen's a little bit too interesting for Texas.
Didn't the show win just one Emmy, was it? Or did it win more than one?
I don't know what it won. It won a few awards. Got an Annie, got an Emmy for a few Emmys.
Oh, a few Emmys. There we go.
One for Pamela, who voices Bobby. And a bunch of Annies.
Because it definitely deserves it. And coming back to the point of the start, like it definitely had some stiff competition in shows just screaming for attention, whereas it was just in the background doing its own thing very successfully. Like it never really felt like it had a need to compete with those other shows. Like, it knew exactly what it was, and it plotted a trajectory to get there every single time, which is really consistently strong. Like were there many bad episodes? Is that even a thing with King of the Hill?
A bad episode. I don't know. Max, do you know any bad episodes? Anything you didn't like?
Nothing I didn't like. Some of them are more typical, like, of a plot, but it doesn't really matter. They're all kind of part of a bigger whole, and they end in 20 minutes. So.
Yeah. I think it did start to dip in the later seasons when it got very real and modern, and I think the writing had changed.
Yeah.
There's episodes where they tackle like, oh, this is the internet, or Peggy's trying to break into she got into an MLM scheme. Mm-hmm. Like, although there are several episodes where that happens, it didn't feel. It felt like King of the Hill is like tackling modern day issues as opposed to small town issues. Yeah, I don't know. Those are right at the end, so I don't know if it's.
Why do you think it was so successful, guys?
I think it's a number of things. The ratings were pretty good. They were always good. And in a time when it was difficult to get good ratings, and it always performed, it was a show that didn't have a lot of difficulty in production. Yeah. I think that it was always being worked on and getting things done. And so I don't think there were any major issues with how expensive it was or something like that. Mm-hmm. I know that they were about to end it, and they didn't allow them to air the final episodes of like season 9. But when they pushed those episodes into season 10, the ratings were so good that they were just like, oh, we can't stop making it now. Let's continue running it. I mean, I think it's a lot like Hank. Like the show felt very dependable.
And Bobby. I think Bobby's a very good character.
Yeah.
What about you, Max? What do you think?
Well, we said earlier, and I still agree, that it was made kind of for liberals, making fun of conservative people, but it ended up loving those conservative people so much that conservative people themselves were fans of the show.
Yeah.
So it's this perfect mix of both sides can get something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world can get something out of it. So
And what's crazy is, they tried to do the reverse of that. The Good Family, where it was like, oh, it's a liberal family, and it was like one season canceled.
that was terrible.
Oh, wow.
It was bad. And I think something about these characters, something about the heart that went into this show made it that good.
What I really like is it's got that underlying intelligence there that kind of sneaks in. So when you can watch it, like you were saying, on a certain level, and people will laugh and appreciate it in that way. But once you're sucked in and it starts to confront all these challenges in your own life right there in front of you in a very intelligent way,
Yes.
but it doesn't seem threatening at all. It's not just shoving it in your face.
The characters are not that intelligent, but because of their interaction and the things that they experience, they're not always able to express like what they experience, but it's very intelligent, the thing that they experienced, and and it was very profound what they experienced.
It's a real testament to obviously Mike Judge and how he's able to just spot these things he's come across in his life and put it out there. Like Office Space is probably still one of my favorite films, just based on the fact that no matter where you go in the world, I remember watching it with my friends in my old workplace, and we were laughing so hard because we were like, oh, it's kind of like this. And then 2 weeks later, literally, they announced they were having a Hawaiian shirt day on a Friday.
Oh.
And they did not get the irony of like, what that meant, or the fact that, it went completely over their head.
I really feel like that's Mike Judge's sense of humor.
Yes.
It's so incredibly real that it's like almost not funny, but it is hilarious. Like a lot of different types of humor is very slapsticky. It's very outrageous. It's very sarcastic. But Mike Judge's sense of humor is like, it is pinpointingly realistic. Just a caricature of this person that's done so realistic that you have to laugh.
Wow. Yeah.
And another one of his movies, Idiocracy, has the exact same feeling where it's not even a lot of jokes. It's not just a lot of comedy things. It's that the way the future looks is so accurate and thought out that it's just incredible to watch and funny because of it.
And always true character more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's not just the circumstances that happen. Like they seem almost inconsequential to what the characters are saying and what they're doing. And that's what really connected me more to Office Space and things like King of the Hill, because it was the characters that sucked me in and were super relatable. And I was like, oh my God, I know that kind of person. And then the story, I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, Or you don't know?
No, I know exactly. I was letting there be breathing room.
Okay.
My favorite episode of King of the Hill, the one that sticks out to me, is one where they tackle an issue which is not political at all, and it's the meaning of life.
Oh, wow.
And his Laotian neighbor tells him
The joke.
this Buddhist parable that is a real Buddhist parable where this guy falls off a cliff.
Yeah.
He's hanging on a branch. There's a tiger above him that could eat him, and he could fall to his death below him.
Yeah.
But on the branch, there's a strawberry. So it's about appreciating your present. That's what you always have to do. And Hank thinks it's a joke. And so that's what's funny is they keep telling each other that amazing Buddhist parable as a joke. But in a way, they learn the exact same lesson in that episode. They really, there's a moment at the end of the episode where Bobby and Hank are sitting on, I believe, the water tower and looking at the sunset.
Yeah.
And he tells Bobby the joke, and he goes, "Dad, you didn't even set it up right." But it's so glorious, and that like they're just captured in this beautiful sun glow, and like they really are father and son at that moment and present.
And he changes the joke to be about football and Gatorade.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, because he can't bring himself to tell the real story.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
which is a really
great.
perfect encapsulation of the show.
You know, I didn't understand that episode until you just explained it, Max. That one had always been kind of a mystery because I wasn't sure if it wasn't supposed to make sense or if it was just going to be unexplained. I understand now. I thank you.
Mike Judge is into Buddhism, dude. He's very into being spiritually centered. I think he must feel a lot, you know? He's very empathetic.
Well, when you're confronting feelings all the time, you kind of have to have a good self of your own center, specifically for writing other characters. Like, you have to be able to identify people's failings and people's graces really well, and you really need to have a good sense of self, I think, to do that too. And not to preach about Buddhism, but it's really good at kind of getting into your own head, how it's mechanically structured.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah, I had a friend who was a Buddhist, but that makes a lot of sense if he's kind of really into it, because when it comes to relatable characters, like, I've never come across anything so accurately put in front of my eyes. What's your favorite episode, Brent?
I'm not sure if I have a favorite episode because I think I like the feeling of many King of the Hill episodes. Like, when Hank takes upon himself to do something right and correct something and solve it in his own very American way, where, like, one thing I can think of is when he was molested by the dolphin and then he sees Luann get sexually harassed, and so he gets the dolphin to sexually harass her harasser. Like, I think those are very powerful Hank moments, and I have to say I love all of those. And I think one of the episodes that stands out to me the most as being a powerful Hank episode, is the 12 Angry Men homage about the lawnmower, because it's something that Hank would unapologetically love. He loves his lawnmower. He believes it's the perfect make and model, and he thinks he's going to discuss how great it is. Yeah. And they show him this completely stupid, over-designed disaster, and he has to convince everyone to love the old version. But he's not only fighting to show them the old version, but there's an analogy to his dad who snuck into it, who doesn't like his old wife, and the lawnmower becomes Hank's mom.
God, that's so smart.
And Hank's mom becomes a lawnmower, and in the end, like, he proves with just his understanding of how it would work, like, how bad the new version is, and he executes a maneuver where, like, the lawnmower turns around and flips over and convinces everybody.
That's so smart.
And there's all the different characters in the room, and they all come from different places, and they all just want the $50. But Hank takes it so seriously.
Do you kind of think about it when you're working now? Like, is it in the back of your head?
I think about King of the Hill all the time.
Even when you're not working?
Well, when I'm working, I think about it because I think about what would it have been like for these people to have to draw this thing. Yeah. And I have to draw a lot of similar things. Like, you know, they had to design cars going around corners and stuff like that, and they had to design all kinds of really difficult stuff because it was a very realistic show. Yeah. And the drawing style is very restrictive and had to be really, really on model. And I'm kind of like toiling away, like, at my desk drawing realistic cars, and it just makes me think about, wow, just 10 years earlier I could have been on this show and having to do this as well.
And do the same thing.
The same thing.
Yeah, we work in primetime animation, which is generally got the same sort of proportions and very restrictive. You can't be too shapy. Everything's got to kind of fit together.
Yeah. And a lot of people who work on Rick and Morty are King of the Hill veterans. Our art director, several of the storyboard directors. So it's in the blood of Rick and Morty, is King of the Hill sensibilities.
Yeah, the main supervising director, Wes Archer, is actually one of the early creators. I think he even made the pilot of King of the Hill. Wow. And did a lot of the turnarounds of Hank and stuff. Yeah. He looks like a King of the Hill character. Actually, there's a character in the show called Wesley Archer. Or Wesley Martin Archer, right, Brent?
Yeah, and so they put a combination of Wes Archer, who is a director, and his brother Martin Archer, who's also a storyboard director, into the show. Wow.
And he sells cocaine to Peggy.
And it looks just like both of them.
As like a speaking character, or just kind of a background?
He's a speaking character. Wow. It's not voiced by them, but it looks like him. You know, a few other people. Our art director did character layout for eight seasons, which is not a job that really exists anymore, but a very difficult job, and I think that really honed his skills.
I think it's so interesting. Do you think a show like King of the Hill would happen again?
No, I don't think it could, because I don't think we're in a place politically where we can even talk about these things.
Mm-hmm.
But King of the Hill, I don't think would be funny anymore.
Okay.
Like if you took those same ideas and was like, oh, big bad technology streaming service upsets small town guy. Like that's like everything now. It's so eye rolly. Like if I hear a joke about Facebook on a sitcom, I like roll my eyes.
Yeah.
But I think that King of the Hill lives on spiritually in other Mike Judge productions, because it's basically the same thing reskinned. And so like Silicon Valley and Idiocracy and all these other Mike Judge things have the same tones and ideas. It's almost like there's a skeleton of what makes a good character-driven show, and I think it basically went on to be that. I think if I was gonna make a show, I would pull direct inspiration from King of the Hill, and I would want to set up characters in the way that they would have done it back then.
Yeah, which is smart.
It wouldn't be about a small town in Texas, but it would be like, or I would want to pull from that.
But once you set up the character conflicts, that really drives the show. Like whatever about the kind of main storyline as being interesting, what always holds strong is the character's arc and the character's interactions, because that's what really people connect to more than, we're on a quest to go stop the evil wizard. Well, there we go. That's great. That was really interesting about King of the Hill. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. No, it was a blast.
Thank you.
Any parting words for your fans?
Stay tuned. Don't become a dead sub. We got more awesome BaM animation content coming at you.
If you want to check the guys out, please do. If you haven't already, go to just BaM Animation on YouTube. You can find all their work. Brent has a website called brentnoll.com, and Max has a Tumblr. I don't think you have a website, Max. It's your Tumblr, isn't it?
Yeah, you can just look my name up, Maximus Pauson.
There you go. I would check the guys' work out, and especially their BaM animation stuff. If you want to send in any work, what they do is they redraw it and use it to teach about different aspects of working in the industry, essentially doing character turnarounds and things like that. So if you send in your work to
bam.redrawmyart@gmail.com,
and please do, because the guys love that stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Thanks a million, guys.
I felt good about that one.